Hello. In this video, I'm going to go over some Zoom classroom management strategies. The majority of these strategies come in the form of settings that we can enable or disable before the meeting begins, along with in-meeting controls that we have. Understanding the power that we hold as the host is going to allow us to effectively run an online class with our students. If at any time you need help enabling or disabling settings, or you'd like to practice some in-meeting controls that you have, I would be more than happy to assist you in developing and building this online learning environment. There are several important Zoom settings that we're going to want to consider so we can run an effective online classroom and manage those Zoom rooms. Let's take a look at them. The first Zoom setting that I would enable is the waiting room. The waiting room is just going to place my participants in an empty room by themselves, and I can admit them when I'm ready. Another feature that you may want to consider is how are people joining the meeting? Are they joining with their video on? Are they joining with their audio on? This is personal preference, but I prefer that my video is off when I join and my participants' video is off when they join. This is going to allow the host and the participants to show themselves when they're ready. Another setting that I would encourage you to look at is to allow participants to join before the host. I always keep this off. I want to be the first one in my meeting, and then people can join once I'm ready. Muting all participants when they join, again, is personal preference. I like to keep everybody muted upon entry, especially if it's a large group, just so we're not overwhelmed with background noise. Participants can always unmute themselves when they're ready. The chat feature is definitely nice. We just need to make sure that we're managing it appropriately. You can see right now I have my chat on. So this is going to allow me to chat with students, and I want the students to be able to chat with me as well. The private chat is something that you're going to want to consider. When I'm dealing with students or a large group, I keep the private chat off. As the host, I can still privately chat with participants, and they can privately chat with the host. I just like to have this off because I don't want my participants privately chatting with each other. If you are on our upgraded licensed account, we now have access to polling. We can create polls before the meeting begins, and I can send those polls to my audience and get results and share those results with the entire class. So if you'd like to create polls, please make sure that this feature is turned on. Screen sharing is a great feature of Zoom, especially when I need to go over assignments or anything on Google Classroom. So please make sure that you have screen sharing on, and you can see right now who can share. Well, I have all participants can share. I don't know if I necessarily want all of my participants sharing their screen, so I'm going to make sure it says host only. I can always change this in meeting if I ever need students to share their screen. Annotation is a great tool that would allow me to create annotations on my screen while I'm screen sharing. But it also allows participants to annotate on my screen while I'm screen sharing. We can turn this off in meeting where I can annotate and I can make it so my students cannot annotate. So this is going to be a personal preference. If you want to annotate, go ahead and turn it on. If you have no intentions of annotating, I would go ahead and turn it off just so students are not drawing on your screen during a meeting. Another setting to help you manage your online class is allowing participants to rename themselves. I would go ahead and turn this off. When students join and they're in the waiting room, if you are setting that up, I can see exactly who's in there and admit them. I don't want them to change their name in meeting. Allowing them to rename themselves could create issues in that meeting, and I might not know who that student is if they change their name. Breakout rooms is one of my favorite features about Zoom. Please make sure that you have this feature turned on. That way you can assign your students to breakout rooms if needed. So as you can see from this video, Zoom has a ton of online settings that we can enable or turn off as needed. I would encourage you to go through this list. It is a very lengthy list, but there's tons of options that allow us to customize our Zoom meetings to meet our students' needs. Before we host a Zoom meeting with our students, we're going to want to take the time to look at some settings. Before I show you the settings that are available in the Zoom app, remember that we should be looking at the Zoom website. In the Zoom website, we are going to find many more settings that are not available to us in the app version. In this app version, we're going to look at the bottom left-hand side of our screen where we see a gear icon for settings. After we open this up, the first thing we're going to want to look at is our account. You can see that mine is licensed. We're noticing that many teachers across the district are still in the basic account. If yours is showing up as basic, we need to get you upgraded. Please get a hold of me or Teresa and we can make this happen. In this setting area, we're going to look at two different spots. We're going to take a look at meetings and we're going to take a look at chat. Let's take a look at meetings first. Inside of here, it really is personal preference. All of these things are going to be dependent on how you want your Zoom meetings to run and some personal preferences that you have. I would encourage you to go through here, enable these, disable these as you see fit, and make sure that you're happy with all of your settings. A couple of these that I encourage you to focus on is, are you coming into the meeting with your microphone muted? And are you coming into the meeting with your video off? I like to have my microphone muted and video off upon arrival, and all of my participants to do the same. Again, this is personal preference, but this is the way that I leave mine. Another one that you're probably going to want to have enabled or turned on is show name when participants join. We need to know who we're letting into the meeting. Always show meeting controls. This is going to be very helpful, especially on the app version. Going back to the main setting area, we're also going to want to look at chat. In the chat area, there's just a couple that I want to highlight, and I encourage you to take a look at the rest and see if you'd like to enable or disable these. I think the most important thing is when viewing unread messages, do you want to start at the first unread message or start at the latest? When there's a lot of chats rolling in, it can be very hard to organize yourself and make sure you're reading them and getting back to all of them. So setting it up how you see best is important. You can also get notifications, so an in-app alert sound. So anytime a new chat happens, I would be getting alerted. I think this is important since it's a little more challenging to see the chats in the app. Now that I've taken the time to go through all of my settings on the Zoom website and using the Zoom app, I'm ready to have students in my meeting. Understanding the settings and features that the host has in meeting is going to allow me to better manage my online class. Let's take a look at some of these in-meeting settings and features. The first area I'd like to look at is the participant area. Once you select the participant area, you're going to notice yourself as the host and any students that are currently in meeting or in the waiting room. If you select on any student in this area, you're going to get a list of options that appear. I went ahead and selected my test student, and you can see the following options. I can chat with that student privately. I could make the student a host or assign them to a co-host role. I suggest that doesn't happen. I think this should really only be if another teacher is joining me. We should not give a student these powers. I can put this student in a waiting room. This could be just to give them a quiet place to work, or maybe they're being a disruption to my class and I just need them out of there for now. I can ask the student to start their video. If they don't have their video on and I select this, they'll get a message on their screen asking them to start their video. I can go through and rename students. Let's say I don't agree with the name that they have, or they are not following directions on a certain format for their name. I can go through and manually do that. And I can also just remove students from the meeting if necessary. If you take a look at the bottom of the participant area, you can see that I can mute everybody here, and I can also ask everyone to unmute themselves if needed. You can also see next to my name up at the top as the host, you can tell that I am recording this. There's a little recording symbol next to my name. You can also see my microphone is going up and down green. So I can always go through and see who is producing that audio and who is talking if needed. The next area I want to take a look at is more. It's in the top right-hand corner of my screen. You can see that there are several reactions that I can put on my screen for my participants to see. You can see currently right now I am recording and I can pause or stop that recording. If you weren't recording, there would be an option up at the top that says record to cloud. I could go ahead and select chat and I can chat with everybody in my meeting or with students individually if I'd like. I can also check out meeting settings, which we'll do in a moment. I could minimize the meeting, add a virtual background, or disconnect from my audio. I'm going to go ahead and select meeting settings. Just like on a desktop or laptop, there are in-meeting controls that I have. We don't have as many, but we still have some good ones here. I could go ahead and lock the meeting. I could enable or disable the waiting room. I can allow participants to share their screen, chat with host only, no one, or everybody. I could let students rename themselves, and I could let students unmute themselves. So here's the nice part about this is I had this all set up ahead of time, which is why I have certain features enabled, which are green, and certain features disabled, which are gray. Well, let's say in my meeting, I need to switch these back and forth. So currently I have chat with on host only. Well, let's say I want to pose a question to the group and I want everybody to respond and everybody to see those responses. All I'd have to do is select this and I could change it to everyone publicly. So I could do my activity where I post a question, everybody responds, that activity is done, and I can change it back to host only if I wanted. I could do that with any of these features. I can enable them and disable them as needed as my meeting progresses. Moving down to the next section, we have host controls. If I needed to, I could rename my meeting. I can change whether participants are muted upon entry. And then I can also play, join, and leave sounds. This is nice as the host, especially on an iPad where I can't see as many students in gallery view. This would give me a little chime or jingle each time a student joined my meeting or waiting room and each time a student left my meeting. In the general section, I think a lot of these are personal preference. I would go through and customize them to meet your teaching style. The only one I would really encourage you to leave on is show name when participants join. We need to know who is joining our meeting. In order to share your screen on the iPad, we need to follow a little different route than what we do on a laptop or desktop. The first thing we're going to do is select Share Content in the top right-hand portion of your screen. When you select this, you'll see a drop-down menu appear and we have 6 options. The 2 most common options that I see teachers using are the screen and whiteboard. For this example, we're just going to focus on the screen. This would allow me to share things like Google Classroom, YouTube, or any other app that I have on my iPad. After I select screen, I'll notice this on my iPad. Please make sure that under Screen Broadcast, you have selected Zoom. If there are any other options, it will not share your screen successfully. So please make sure that Zoom is selected. Once that is selected, go ahead and hit Start Broadcast. You'll see a little 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then you'll know if you've successfully shared your screen because you'll have this screen appear. If you'd like, go ahead and hit Stop Share at any time to go back to your students in the main area.